it goes like this. The good morning train is coming, how are you? And all the kids go, choo choo. The good morning train is coming, how are you? Choo choo. Hi you guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Christina from Kindertribe MN, and I'm so excited that you are here today. On my Instagram, I asked if anybody had any questions about life, teaching kindergarten, and I got amazing responses, but all of the questions were really like big questions versus just like yes, no, easy questions. So I'm going to try to get through as many as I can, and if it starts to get too long, there might be a part 2 for this. So let's get started. Also, I'm reading these from my little notebook here, so that's why I'm looking down right now. So question number 1 is, what does your morning meeting look like? Morning meeting is one of my favorite times of the day. It's really the part of the day that is so routine for me and for the students that I think it flows so well. If I were to have a substitute teacher come in, the students could totally lead morning meeting by themselves. The beginning of the year morning meeting looks a lot different than November and December and so on. So I'll tell you first about what the beginning of the year morning meeting looks like. So at the beginning of the day, I have all my students sit on the outside of the rug, and we actually start standing, and we sing Dr. Jean's Hello Neighbor song, but I changed the lyrics because I think I couldn't really remember the right words, so I just made it up myself. I'm not gonna sing it because I'm a terrible singer, but this is how it goes with little action. So we say, hello friends, how are you? I'm very happy to see you. Greet your neighbor, and then we boogie on down, give a jump, and we jump up, and then we turn around. So we sing it normal the first time. Then we like to do different voices. So sometimes we'll do it like grumpy old men, or we'll do it really fast or really slow, and they love it. We usually do that about 3 times. Then we sit down crisscross applesauce, and at the beginning of the year, because we don't know each other's names, I have all of their names written on little sentence strips, and I have them turned name down, and I sing the Good Morning Train song. I don't know again where this song came from, but my kids love it. So it goes like this. The good morning train is coming, how are you? And all the kids go, choo choo. The good morning train is coming, how are you? Choo choo. Then you sing it 3 times. The good morning train is coming, the good morning train is coming, the good morning train is coming, how are you? Choo choo. And we say good morning to, and then I flip a name. So if it's like Susie, Susie can jump up or she can give a big wave, and we say good morning to Susie, how are you? Choo choo. And we say good morning to Bobby, how are you? And Bobby jumps up. And we say good morning to Lauren, and she jumps up. And we say good morning to Connor, and he jumps up. And we say good morning to Betty, how are you? Choo choo. And we go through the whole list of names. Once we're done, then I do some silly ones if we have a little bit left over of the song. So I'll say, and we say good morning to the carpet, and we say good morning to the ceiling, and we say good morning to ourselves, how are you? Choo choo. Again, they love it, and we learn names really, really fast. Then we have this little Harry the Hedgehog. He's a stuffed animal. He's like our class mascot. And whenever you're holding Harry is when you get to speak. So at the beginning of the year for our news time, I'll pick an easy question like, what is your favorite ice cream flavor? And so they'll hold it and they'll say, my name is Susie and my favorite ice cream flavor is cookie dough. And then they'll pass it around the circle. So we do that at the beginning, and then we do a game. So once we're kind of into the swing of things, like probably 3 weeks or 4 weeks in, what I do is I'll still do the Hello Friends song at the beginning, but normally once that's already done, instead of doing the Good Morning Train, we practice doing handshakes and greeting one another. So we practice shaking their hand, smiling, making eye contact, and I would say, good morning, Susie, and Susie would say, good morning, Miss Hammery, and then Susie would pass it on to the next person, and it goes all the way around the circle, and they get so good at this, and it's really fun to see even 5- and 6-year-olds greeting each other like that. So that's our greeting. Then for news, I either pick popsicle sticks with their names on it, or I'll pick students and I'll kind of keep track of who shared this week, and I'll pick 3 different students. So they get to share news. So sometimes their news might be that they went to Dairy Queen last night, or they went to their grandma's house, or they went to the Mall of America. Once they're done sharing their news, students can then raise their hand and they get to pick 2 friends to ask them questions. And we get really good at figuring out what is a question. So if they went to their grandma's house, they might ask, what do you call your grandma? Where does your grandma live? What did you do? All those sorts of questions. So we do that for 3 friends that get to share their news. And then we play a game or an activity. So I have just like a handful of games that we usually like to do. One that's a really good one to start with is we call it Pattern Maker, even though it's not really a pattern, so I'll have to change that name. But again, they're still sitting in a circle and we have one student in the middle and they close their eyes. I pick a stick and that student raises their hand because they're going to be in charge of switching kind of the rhythm. So we'll do things like we'll all be tapping our legs, and then without telling us, the person changing it will change it to something else. And the person in the middle is trying to figure out who is the person in charge of changing the rhythm. So they're kind of looking around the circle, and the person that's changing it has to be really sneaky and not let them see. And then also we don't want to be looking right at that person. So that's a game. Similar to that, we play Frogger, which is another same sort of thing where they have to stick out their tongue at somebody to get the flies down, we call it, and that's Frogger. We play Heads Up, 5 Up, or like Heads Up, 7 Up is what you might do, but in kindergarten we just do 5. We play 4 Corners. We do Who's Got the Penny. You can kind of Google any of these games and you'll find a ton of ideas, but we like to kind of just cycle through the tried and true classics because they're super fun. I recommend this book, the Morning Meeting book, and it's from the Responsive Classroom. I do aspects of the Responsive Classroom that I've just found to be really helpful, but this has a ton of games in it as well, and a lot of games for even older grades. I know in kindergarten and first grade sometimes those more complex games are kind of tricky, but this is a really awesome book, so I recommend this if you're wondering about morning meeting. Okay, question number 2 is, what does your daily schedule look like? Okay, let's see. So when my students come in, there's kind of a staggered time for about 10 minutes where students either get dropped off from the buses, from their cars, if they're walkers, and they come to our classroom. They take their lunch stick and put it in the hot lunch or cold lunch. They do a greeting with me, so we do high five, elbow bump, fist bump, wave, anything like that. And then they go into the classroom, they take off their backpacks, put it in their locker, take out their yellow take-home folder, and then they sit at their table spot and they have morning tubs. So last year I started doing morning tubs where I just have more fine motor and like STEM activities versus worksheets and things like that. But the first month of school, I just have a tub of Play-Doh out and they just can play with the Play-Doh and do that sort of thing. But most of my tubs are like little brain flakes or linking cubes or Unifix cubes, anything like that. That's just like really hand-eye fun for them to build. There's not really an end goal for them. They could just keep working. So they do that for about 10 minutes, depending on how soon they get to school. And then I will usually play a song like Zippity Doo Dah, and by the end of the song, they have to be cleaned up and be on the outside of the rug, and that's where we start our morning meeting. Morning meeting, once we're in the flow of it, usually lasts about 15 to 20 minutes, depending on if we have anything to talk about as a whole group, or if news takes longer, or just things like that. Then we usually listen to our school morning news, so it's actually on the projector, and then we will do a movement break using Go Noodles, so just to get our bodies flowing. Then we start with phonics. So our phonics usually lasts about 20 to 30 minutes. We go into our literacy. Between there we do a little bathroom break. Then we go into our literacy for about a half an hour for the actual curriculum that we follow, and then we go to an intervention time, so we work on our reading groups and get into smaller groups to work on our reading levels. In that, I also do my guided reading groups too. So we have about an hour and a half of literacy in the morning. Then we go to lunch and recess, and we have about 20 minutes for lunch and 20 minutes for recess. When they come back, we do quiet time. So for the first 2 months, quiet time, they take out their beach towel, and I have piano music playing and the lights are off, and they can just lay there or sit there, but it's a time to recharge. And I always talk about how with a cell phone or an iPad, you have to charge it so that it has energy, and the same thing happens to us. So this is our time to just relax. And I don't usually have people that actually fall asleep, but it is a quiet time, and I'm a pretty big stickler on not talking during that time and not letting them be silly or do things like that. Usually around Thanksgiving, we use that time as our read to self time. So when they come in from recess, they take their read to self bin, they find their special spot, and then they quietly look at their books and read their books for about 20 minutes. Again, we build our stamina for read to self, so it doesn't start that long, but that is about the time that we do. Then we transition into our math block, and during that I do math rotations and we do a mini lesson, and then I'm usually working in small groups. This is our schedule from last year, and I think it's going to change a little bit, but this is kind of the flow that we did. Then we go to our specials, so we have gym, music, and art. They go there for about 50 minutes, and that's my prep to get things ready. When they come back, we do snacks, so they each bring their own healthy snack, and they have about 10 minutes to eat. I have to be better about this because last year I had students that brought like huge Thanksgiving feasts for snack time, so it's just usually like a granola bar, a fruit, an applesauce, anything like that. And then we went into Writer's Workshop, and I will talk about Writer's Workshop in a little bit, since that's one of the questions. And then after Writer's Workshop, we transitioned into choice time. So we have a half an hour for choice time every day, and that's like their free play time. So they get to play board games, build, dramatic play centers, all of that. And then for about that last chunk of the day, we usually did some sort of social studies or science. That's also when I like to really do a read aloud that focuses on social and emotional learning. And then we do dismissal and head home. Then I will go into the question about Writer's Workshop. I had a question that was, what does your Writer's Workshop look like? So again, I have a book. I feel like I have book examples for everything. I have this book, which is Talking, Drawing, and Writing. And I love this book because it really honors that students come to school with the ability to tell stories. Kids love to tell about their life and tell about the things they're doing. Trust me, you'll hear stories all day, every day. And it talks about how that's part of the writing process and storytelling. So that's kind of the first step. And then we build onto drawing pictures. So at the beginning of the year, a lot of our Writer's Workshop is thinking of a story in our brain or thinking of an exact moment and then drawing a picture that goes with that. And then as they gain more skills, they're able to label maybe with just one letter, the beginning sound, or maybe starting to stretch out the words. And by the end, they're writing sentences and starting to write full stories. So Talking, Drawing, Writing, I love this book. I highly recommend it for Writer's Workshop. But what our Writer's Workshop really looks like is I will usually have about 8 to 10 minutes of a mini lesson, not even that much usually, but I will start during their snack time. I will start drawing my own picture on our projector, our document camera, and then as snack cleans up and we do a little movement break, I will put that up on the board for them to see. And at the beginning of the year, I'll be talking through my story and talk about if I was drawing a picture of my dog, thinking about, oh, my dog loves her big orange ball that she always has in her mouth. So I have to draw that right next to her. She also loves to lay on the couch, even though my parents don't like her to do that, you know, and I'm kind of telling a story as I'm drawing with details and talking about colors that match and things like that. And then as the year goes on, sometimes I'll ask them, you know, if I'm writing about the dog, her name is Lacey. Ooh, what letter would her name start with? Oh, I should put an L there because I know Lacey starts with L, kind of going on. And then towards the end of the year, I actually have students come up and help me to write my sentences for my stories. So Writer's Workshop, we start with that mini lesson. And then a lot of times it's just kind of free write for them. They can write about anything they want. Sometimes I have a focus, so if we're learning about something or if we have a story like the Gingerbread Man, we'll try to think of new ideas that they could write about too. But we have about 20-ish minutes that they write every day, and they can spread out around the room and they're writing. They have to make sure they are writing some sort of words once we've developed those skills. And then the last 5 minutes, I usually choose about 2 to 3 students to share their work on the document camera. Or if I want everybody to share, we will sometimes share in a circle with a buddy. And another thing that I like to do is an art gallery walk. So they put their writing at their table spot and then we walk around like we're at an art gallery. We walk around and admire everybody's work and try to read some of their writing as well. So that's what Writer's Workshop looks like. Again, I love that time. That's another time during the day that I'll put on some quiet music because I want it to be a time where they're thinking, especially with writing. It's hard to talk with a friend and be writing and be and stay focused that whole time. Next question is, what does your Meet the Teacher look like? I've mentioned in a past video that this year our Meet the Teacher is different. So I'll tell you what it used to look like and then what it's going to look like this year. So in the past, we have an open house. So prior to open house, we do assessments with our students. So we get to meet with them for about 15 minutes and we just kind of check and see where they're at. We ask them about their summers, we get to know them, and they get to meet us as well. And then when they come back for open house, it was a 2-hour open house. So they could bring their families and any supplies that they have. And they would come in and there would be boxes with labels for them to put their supplies. So that's kind of the big task that they do. That's a time where parents get to meet me, where we could answer any questions. I always have a transportation station where they fill out how their student is getting home on the first day of school. Trust me, you need to know this because you will panic on the first day of school. And then also how they're getting home the rest of the year. During my open house, I would also have a wish list with little apples or stars with like Clorox wipes, tissue, magazines, anything that they could donate to our classroom, and they could grab one of those and take it home. And that's also where I had my signups for our mystery readers and any class parties that we're having too. Other than that, they just kind of walk around our classroom. They get to find their table spots, show their parents their lockers. I always have them practice going to our bathroom around the corner and practicing washing their hands, seeing what that looks like. It's just kind of an introduction, but it is open house style, so parents come in and out. I usually have past families come in and say hi as well, and it was very informal. This year, what we're doing instead is we are getting rid of Meet the Teacher. So when they come for assessments, their parents are actually going to come in and meet us for a brief amount of time. So we'll answer any questions. That's where I will ask them about how they're getting home the first day. And then we'll just kind of get to know each other. I'll assess the student. And then the student will come back on the first day of school, but I won't see the parents again until our curriculum night. So we're going to have a curriculum night where we talk through expectations for kindergarten, a little bit more into what our day looks like, and any of the curriculum questions that parents might have. So that's going to be new this year. So as that gets closer, I will definitely make a video to tell you what that's going to look like, because that's going to be new for me as well. Ooh, this is a good question. It was, what does your first day of school look like? So I do have a blog post that's in my profile on Instagram if you want to read a little bit more details about my first day of school, but I try to keep it really simple and know that the first day you really just want to practice procedures, get to know each other, and then make sure they get home and that they have eaten their lunch. Those are like the biggies. So again, like I mentioned, when they come in, there is Play-Doh at their table spot. I love this because it's something they're familiar with. It's easy, they can keep working on it, and then we just get all the Play-Doh back in the tub. Easy cleanup. Then we do our morning meeting, and that's where I really introduce myself. We practice saying my name. We talk about a lot of our carpet expectations. So we go over our rules, like we raise our hand, we keep our hands to ourselves, we stay with the group, we kind of talk through all of our classroom rules. And then from there, I usually do a little activity. So in the past, I've done the Pete the Cat, Rockin' in My School Shoes, and I'll read that story. A lot of them are familiar with Pete the Cat. And then on the last page, there was usually a little note from Pete the Cat, and it takes us on a scavenger hunt. So it kind of acts like Pete the Cat is around the school. And so we practice lining up, what it should look like and sound like in the halls. We go to different areas of the school so they get to see this is where the office is, this is where a lunchroom is, the library, the music room, and we kind of go around. There's clues posted around the school. And then when they come back into the classroom, they find Pete. I have a little stuffed animal Pete, and it has some coloring sheets. So we briefly talk about coloring expectations. They go to their table spots and they color for a little bit. And after that, we'll usually join back and do some movements. I do a ton of songs, and I really don't use Go Noodle a ton the first week of school. I like to just have a ton of Dr. Jean, those type of songs, and be on the outside of the rug where everybody's looking in. They're looking to you for directions versus looking up at the screen, just so they get used to that. From there, we usually practice going to the bathroom and what that looks like and sounds like. We talk through all those expectations. Usually we'll come back in and we'll talk through what our morning procedure is, and we'll practice taking our yellow folders out, putting it in our mailbox, hanging up our backpacks. We kind of go through those sorts of steps. And, you know, from there, maybe another read aloud, but I feel like the morning usually flies by and it's already ready for lunch. So at that time, I talk a lot about what lunch will look like, what recess will look like. This is their first time where they're not with me for part of the day, so I really try to explain what that will be like and that I will be there to pick them up, and I'll show them how that all works. When they come back, again, we do quiet time and I demonstrate everything really slow, and we have a couple friends practice it and then everybody practices it. So we do quiet time. During math, I have a math read aloud. I usually do chicka chicka 1, 2, 3, and then I just have them explore different math manipulatives on that first day. So there'll be Unifix cubes, we have shapes, there's some tracing with Play-Doh, we do all sorts of things like that. Then that's when they normally go to their specialists as well. So again, I talk through what that's going to look like. I introduce them to that teacher. I say I'll be back to pick them up. We talk through snack. Then during this part of the day, I will often have how we get home graph, and we'll talk about the different ways we get home, what that looks like, and we kind of graph that, but we also say we're not going home yet. And then we talk about choice time. So on the first couple days of school, I actually have certain choices laid out for them that they can play with, just so we get used to that. We practice cleaning up, choice time. Signals are a huge thing on the first day of school. So we usually do hands on top, and they say that means stop. And we practice that a ton. I have a little chime that I ding, and we practice, you know, I'll pretend you're talking and they're having fun whispering, and then I'll ding it and they have to be really quiet, hands in their lap. So we do a lot of that, tons of movement. I like to make sure we're really ready for dismissal, since that can be a really scary time because there's so many kids and there's so much going on. So we kind of talk through what that will look like as well. And we do a ton of first day of school read aloud. So that's kind of our first day. It's really basic, but you want to keep it really simple for them as well. The next question is best kindergarten read alouds. Okay, I am like a book guru. I love books so much. I will talk about a few of my favorites for the month of September, and then maybe just a few series that I enjoy. So the first day of school, I love to read Pete the Cat Rockin' in My School Shoes. I'm also going to get that new Pigeon Goes to School book. Then the second day we do The Kissing Hand. During the first week of school, I love to do the No David books. We do How Full Is Your Bucket? The second week of school, we start to work on names. So we'll do Chrysanthemum and Chicka Chicka Boom Boom. And then the rest of September, I have so many September read alouds. So it's all those first day of school books I think are always amazing because they can connect to them. We can talk about ways they're the same as what we're doing, ways that they're different, and we can always talk through rules. Some of our favorite series of books, any Mo Willems books. They love Elephant and Piggy books. They love all the Pigeon books. Those are super fun. We love Pete the Cat. Froggy books are really popular. My students love Frog and Toad books. So in the spring, I like to start reading sort of like chapter books. So I'll read a chapter of those a day, and my students loved them. Like when we would go to the library, every student wanted to check out a Frog and Toad book, and there are some claymation videos that go verbatim what the story is, so the students can hear the story and then see it on the video, which is super fun. And then at the end of the year, I always read Junie B. Jones, the track and field one, Captain Field Day I believe it's called, and Junie B. Jones is a kindergarten graduate, and as I'm reading, I'm able to take out any words that she might use, like dumb, things like that aren't kindergarten friendly. And I sometimes will change the grammar so it sounds the correct way, but my students love it, and there are some pictures, but again, they can relate, and it's kind of their first chapter book, so that's super fun. Each month on Instagram, I will usually post my bookshelf with all of my books on there, so check that out if you want more book recommendations. Okay, and then the last question that I'm going to answer today has to do with the best classroom management tip for new teachers. I mentioned this before, but I feel like you can never say it enough. Conscious discipline is kind of my go-to. So you have to think about that your classroom management depends on your students for that year. So this past year, my students really thrived on routine. and consistency, which I think most students do. So in my classroom, we have those 5 rules that I talked about in my last video, so check that out if you want to know what those rules are. And then I use parts of conscious discipline, so really thinking through how I'm responding to them, taking deep breaths, being mindful, and then I also take parts of the responsive classroom. So all of our consequences are logical. So if we're walking in the hallway and a student is like making loud noises or talking, I will give a reminder to the whole class that will say, when we're in the hallway, our bubbles are in and our hands are to our side. And if they're still not doing the expected behavior, I'll give another general reminder. If you're not able to show me what it looks like in the hallway, we are going to need to practice our hallway walking during choice time. And if that student still shows that they can't do it the correct way, I will pull them aside privately and talk about how we're going to practice hallway walking, because they showed me that they could not do it the correct way the last time we were in the hallway. So then during choice time, I will pull that student out and they'll practice kind of walking in the hallway, showing me that they know what that looks like. Once they've showed me the correct way, we'll give a high five, they got it. And I'll say, tomorrow I'm gonna check and see if you remembered how we walk in the hallway. So again, it's a logical consequence versus having a student that's not doing the right thing and just taking their choice time away or taking their recess away. So that's kind of what I use. Other years I have used Class Dojo as a way to kind of display, and I would have table groups. So if a group was on task, I would give them a point and they'd hear that little ding and they'd all look up and be like, yes, our table got a point. We also use gotchas at our school that have a space to write their name. So I will say, wow, I'm looking for students that are working with a bubble in their mouth. They are quietly working hard and they're staying in their spot the whole time, and I'll go around and give gotchas, and then we enter those in a school-wide drawing that the principal picks each week from each grade. So little things like that that are positive versus negative. Any classroom management, if a student is disruptive, I always try to do it in a private way to talk to them. And whenever that happens, trust me, just take a deep breath and know that it's all going to be okay. All they need is practice. So if they're not doing what you expect them to, that means they don't have the skills or they don't know when to use the skills, and that's when teachable moments come in. I often use our afternoon meeting as well as a place to talk through behavior and talk through how we can problem solve. So if during choice time students are fighting over a toy that they're using, after choice time is done, we will talk as a whole group and we'll kind of act out what it was like, and then I'll ask students, how could we fix this? How could we solve this? So just having those kinds of discussions. So those are all the questions I'm going to answer right now. Again, these were amazing questions. If you have more questions about life, kindergarten teaching, leave them in the comments below, and I'd love to do another question and answer video soon. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to my channel so you can get all of the kindergarten fun that is to come. In a couple weeks, I get to get back into my classroom and I'll be able to share that with you as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.